The woman had committed a minor parking violation, a fleeting inconvenience, easily fixable, but somehow that was enough to spark the fury of an overly assertive patrol officer. She wasn't confrontational. In fact, she was cooperative, offering to adjust the car's position right away. But instead of being met with professionalism, she was faced with arrogance. The officer's tone was hostile, his questions sharp and invasive, and his refusal to engage respectfully was immediate. When she calmly pointed out that his behavior was inappropriate and far beyond his authority, something in him snapped. The moment she asserted herself, his demeanor shifted into blind rage. She had to stand there on a busy street while this so-called representative of the law hurled vile insults. Words aimed directly at her skin color, her intelligence, and her right to exist peacefully in that space. Words no person should ever have to hear. And simply because she refused to silently accept the injustice, because she dared to speak up, she was handcuffed, treated like a criminal, in public, on a crowded sidewalk, under the judgmental gaze of bystanders. The officer thought he was teaching her a lesson in humility. He had no idea who he was dealing with. He had no idea that this small, racially charged abuse of power would set in motion events that would end his career. The wheel of justice had begun to turn, and nothing would stop it. It was late afternoon, and the streets near the county courthouse glowed gold under the fading sun. Cars crawled forward in heavy traffic. Horns honked. People talked loudly on their phones. In the middle of it all, Camille Reed, a poised black woman in her mid-40s, exited the courthouse after a long day of litigation. She was dressed sharply in a tailored navy pantsuit and black heels, her hair pulled neatly into a bun, her posture straight despite clear fatigue. Camille had just wrapped up a tense session in court and was now on her way to her partner's office, just a few blocks away, to pick up some urgent documents before heading home. She drove her silver sedan slowly along the congested road, looking for parking. Eventually, she found a narrow spot between two SUVs. She parallel parked quickly, not perfectly, but passably, and got out. The rear of her car was sticking out a little, but it wasn't blocking traffic. It was a temporary stop. As she turned to walk toward the law office, a patrol car slowly rolled up behind her vehicle. Inside was Officer Brent Maddox, a white man in his early 30s, built thick, with a permanent look of discontent etched into his face. Maddox was patrolling solo. As he steered past Camille's car, he had to make a slight adjustment to avoid its rear bumper. That minor inconvenience, coupled with seeing a confident black woman in a business suit stepping out of a relatively new car, triggered something ugly in him. Without hesitation, Maddox flipped on his red and blue lights, stopped behind Camille's car, and stepped out with an air of self-importance. "Hey, what the hell kind of parking is that?" he barked without a greeting, his voice echoing down the sidewalk. Startled, Camille turned around. "I'm sorry, officer," she replied calmly. "I realize I didn't pull in all the way. I'll back up a bit and fix it." But Maddox wasn't interested in cooperation. He waved her off dismissively. "Fix it? You shouldn't be behind the wheel if you can't even park. Did you win that license in a raffle or something?" Camille blinked, her eyebrows raising slightly. She bit her lip and kept her composure. "License and registration." Maddox barked before she could respond. She quietly reached into her purse, pulled out her documents, and handed them over. Maddox snatched them with an exaggerated scoff. He read her name aloud. "Camille Reed, huh?" Then he looked her up and down slowly, his eyes dripping with judgment. "Business suit, nice car. Must be in a hurry to do something shady." Camille remained silent. His tone was dripping with insinuation. With each word, he dipped further into a deep well of prejudice, linking her race, gender, and appearance to some imagined misconduct. She took a deep breath and spoke with precision. "Officer Maddox," she began, her voice clear, "a minor parking misalignment is not a criminal offense. I offered to move the vehicle. That is within my rights. The language and tone you're using are inappropriate and inconsistent with the duties of a public officer. You're not authorized to make personal or racial assumptions about citizens." Her voice was firm but not hostile. She was not trying to escalate, only to assert her dignity. But Maddox's face twisted. A black woman quoting legal boundaries back at him felt like an insult to his authority. He took a step closer, his breath hot and heavy. "You think you can lecture me? Do you know who I am?" "I know exactly who you are," Camille replied. "A public servant. And as a citizen, I have rights." "You're resisting," he snapped. "Resisting an officer." "No," she said firmly. "I'm asserting my rights, not resisting." That was all he needed. With that final excuse, Maddox grabbed Camille's wrist, twisting it behind her back. She flinched and recoiled instinctively. "Don't touch me," she cried. "Ah, now you're resisting." He smiled like he'd won something. In one harsh motion, he slammed cold metal cuffs on her wrists. She gritted her teeth against the pain as they tightened around her skin. People stopped and stared. Phones came out. A few whispered. Others just watched, their faces stunned. Camille stood as tall as she could, eyes forward, her face a mask of calm fury. Maddox shoved her toward his car. "Let's take this troublemaker to the station," he muttered. He pushed her into the back seat of the patrol car and slammed the door shut. Then, chest puffed out, he walked to the driver's seat. He picked up the radio and began reporting the incident, smug, self-satisfied. But before he could finish, another police vehicle rolled up and parked beside him. Two officers stepped out. Sergeant Dana Klein, a no-nonsense veteran officer with decades of experience, approached first. She was followed by Lieutenant Harold Brooks, a tall black man with a serious demeanor and powerful presence. "Maddox," Sergeant Klein called out. "What's going on here?" "Just handling a parking violation gone south," he replied with forced ease. Subject was uncooperative. Tried to resist. Klein and Brooks glanced toward the back seat of Maddox's car. Then their expressions shifted, recognition dawning. Klein stepped closer to the window. Her eyes widened. "Camille?" She breathed in disbelief. Lieutenant Brooks' jaw clenched. "Camille Reed? What the hell, Maddox?" Maddox's face went pale. Assistant District Attorney Camille Reed. The woman he'd insulted, arrested, and humiliated in public was not just a citizen. She was one of the highest-ranking legal officials in the city. She had the authority, the network, and the legal standing to dismantle everything he thought was untouchable. He stammered, She didn't show ID. I didn't know. She wasn't cooperative." "You're suspended," Brooks cut in. "Right now. Hand over your badge, your weapon, and your radio." Maddox froze. "Please. Wait. She didn't tell me." "She didn't have to," Sergeant Klein said coldly. "You escalated a parking issue into a racial incident and an illegal arrest." "Camille," Brooks said gently, opening the car door. "Are you all right?" Camille stepped out, adjusting her suit jacket, fixing her posture. "I'm fine," she said coolly. "But I am filing an official complaint. I want this abuse investigated thoroughly. Racial profiling, unlawful detention, use of excessive force, the list is long." And so began the fall of Officer Brent Maddox. Internal Affairs launched a full investigation the very next day. Camille's formal complaint detailed every word, every insult. Sergeant Klein and Lieutenant Brooks provided corroborating accounts. Several witnesses came forward, as did bystanders who had recorded the incident. And Maddox's own body camera? It captured everything, his tone, his threats, his smirk as he slapped the cuffs on Camille. The review board didn't take long. Within a week, Maddox was permanently dismissed from the police force. His pension gone, his reputation shredded. Criminal charges were still under consideration. The story spread through the department like wildfire. Officers spoke in hushed tones, many expressing horror, others relief, because they had long suspected Maddox of being a ticking time bomb. Now, they had proof. Camille returned to work quietly. The experience left a scar, but not a wound that would break her. If anything, it made her resolve stronger. The legal system had its flaws, but she would remain inside it, fighting for those whose voices weren't always heard. Because now, more than ever, she understood, sometimes justice begins not in courtrooms, but on sidewalks, under the weight of a badge, a voice, and a refusal to stay silent.